Hello everyone, welcome to Filk's Room. I'm Alberto. This video is about FilkChannel Mark II. The plugin is not even out yet. I have a beta. I am not sure this will be the version you will have, but it doesn't matter because it was an amazing plugin, one of my favorite plugins that came out recently, one of the best in Kiive Audio's arsenal, and Mark II just got better. Mark I had Dunner cassette modules from the 70s, which are amazing pieces of hardware, into a plugin, which I loved. But Mark II has some vintage German EQs and compressors, which happen to be my favorites of all times, and they're in here. So let's take a look at how they sound, and then let's put them, through their paces in some music of mine. I can't wait. Let's go. Here it is. It's not that different from FilkChannel Mark I. We have the menus on top with presets, input and output trims, oversampling up to 16 times, A/B presets, undo, redo, and UI size and product information. We know that. Input and output meters with readouts, and then the 3 actual modules. You can turn on each module with the on light button or the power button at the bottom. You can drag them around so the modules can be moved freely, and you have multiple choices. So the preamp has pre 1 and 2, equalizer has EQ 1, 2, and 3, and compressor has compressor 1 and compressor 2. So the moment you see something like EQ1, compressor 1, and pre-1, we're as close as we could be to the retro-compatible format of FilkChannel Mark I. That's the Dunner cassette tribute that they paid. But if you go to EQ2, it's clear that this is VSV, or I don't know, I'm unofficial, but this really looks like that, which is one of my favorite EQs of all time. I already said that, I'm going to say it again. Number 3, clearly to me, is inspired by Top Telefunken. So it even read Präsenz here, which is beautiful. And so I was already excited, but just to top the charts, Comp 2 is looking like the 473 by Neumann. So too good to be true. No, it's here, so it's reality. So let's take a look at what the modules do in terms of features. The pre-1 or pre-2 are 100% the same in terms of functions. They just changed the saturation color. They have 2 types of saturation. We turn them on, we see they have different colors. They kind of change gain in terms of also frequency spectrum movements. We have the final output trim of it and the 2 saturation types. The important stuff happens at harmonic level, right? The generated harmonics. So the signal we're sending is just a pure sine wave, 1 kilohertz, minus 5 dBFS. And once we turn on the module with the saturation all the way down at minus 15, we can see the 2 harmonics. Things are going to change slightly if we go saturation type 2. Obviously, the dry-wet will act as sort of a balancing act between the original signal and the saturated effect. And then once we start cranking the input up, we get different types of harmonics, which the aliasing obviously is tamed by on the oversampling side, right? So if we go 16 times, you can see that we're cranking things up, that we're getting things here. This would be the cleanest saturation model you have. Obviously, this also changes according to how you input trim. So input and output trims are a great way to just handle how the 3 modules move. And the pre-2 handles things a little bit differently. So we have different saturation types, but again, output trim, saturation, and S1 and S2. Now, there's color also in the EQs. So once I instantiate the EQ1, we can see that there's harmonic content here. And also, the frequency spectrum here changes. So I'm going to just kick it up a little bit, just so that we get into sort of like 2.5 or minus 5 that I'm sending. And then we can see there's a selectable shelf with different frequency ranges from 1.5 to 16K. And then there's the actual gain increase or decrease. Clockwise is up and counterclockwise is down, but you can see there's plus dB minus, right? So it's easy to see where you have to go to increase or decrease. Then we have middle frequencies, selectable 2.5 to 200, plus and minus. That's the bells. It's a fixed bell. And then we have the low bell or low shelf selectable from 50 to 400. Then you have also filters in terms of high pass and low pass. This is the one module, at least in my version, that has still a built-in high pass. You can see it here from the curve, right? So whether I'm engaging the shelves or not, whether I'm doing anything or nothing at all at 0, there's still a roll-off happening at around, I would say, 90 hertz or maybe 100 and change, right? Slightly going down up to a -10 at around probably, I don't know, 15 hertz or something. So module 2, the EQ2, has a much flatter response, at least again in my version. And when you start cranking things up, you have the typical VSV colors. So you have plus going clockwise again and counterclockwise minus. Typical indentation, to give you an idea, if you shift click, you can enter values like 6, for example. Then you have the lows right at the bottom here, selectable. High and low shelves are there. And then you have the presence, which is selectable from 0.7 stepped up to 5.6 kilohertz. And the presence amount. Again, you can crank it up here and it's a bell. As you can see, it's a parametric that changes with the gain increase or decrease. And the same thing for going down here. Filk 3 is still flat. As I said, only EQ1 so far seems to exhibit a high pass behavior. And the clone of the top Telefunken, because when I see these knobs, it's kind of telling me that we're in that area, has again a peak that you can select for presence, which this time is at the bottom, selectable in steps from 0.7 to 3 kilohertz. And then it's got the two shelves. Red is up, blue is down, and these are fixed 60 and 15 kilohertz. Very famous frequencies for these two things, very easy to use, there's not much to do, just enjoy it probably. The compressor is different in the sense that it has now the Comp 2. So the original one has the gain reduction on-off module. You can select the input gain and the output trim, obviously, right? You can select the type for normal or bass behavior. That's kind of a different flavor of the same compressor. And you have a sidechain, high pass, and a dry-wet mix. The important stuff to give you the tone of it is the actual ratio, and we'll see it because this thing really speaks in different ratios. Even 2 to 3 makes up for a very, very different sound. It's colored again, so even if we're not compressing at all, when we're lowering things here in the trims, there's some harmonic content, second and third harmonic, and I think the output for Filk Comp 1 to be probably retro compatible, backwards compatible, it's linear. So it looks like it's a clean trim, as opposed to the input trim, which is not clean. It's generating different harmonic content. And then the typical attack and recovery of the 473 Neumann, which is another amazing compressor. Typical ratios 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 5, and limit. These are those things. And you can sidechain the bass cut just to remove some bass detection, and you can have an emphasis on the high frequencies just so that you can use this compressor as a de-esser. So why would you use 1:1 ratio? Because of the color of the unit. And yes, it's a beautiful thing too. Sometimes people like to pass mixes on these things in hardware. Maybe it's a little bit wild of a choice, but they definitely have a flavor to it. Typical gain reduction meter here. And then, as I said, attack and recovery. So they go from 0.1 to auto, which is a beautiful auto release that just the 473 has. And, we're going to hear it in a second. Attack from 0.25 to 25 milliseconds. So very wide ranges. But again, only 3. So it's kind of always keeping you on your toes to just keep going, right? This is pretty much it. There's nothing else to know about this. Now we really have just to try them on some music. And luckily, we have mine. Let's do this. And here we are, all sketch of mine. I'm resurrecting some old things after some requests. I've put 2 FilkChannel Mark IIs on the old kicks and old snares. There are some samples I've used as sort of a drum machine, and there's so far that I found 3 kick samples and 3 snare samples layered together at different times. So I've put them through buses. All the effects are online in terms of pedals and things, but they're off, right? So we're only listening to kicks and snares. And so far, the main groove plays like this. So first and foremost, we're going to work on the kicks. I know a lot of you, myself included actually, can tell a lot from EQs, preamps, and compressors by using them on kicks alone, because kicks have actually tons of high frequencies as well, especially these types. So the preamp, let's do an on and off. So this is off. This is on. Now I'm going to play with the different pre's. I kind of like this, so I'm going to copy it. Pre 1 and 2, saturation, 2 types, full wet, and then we're going to reassign the output trim just because we're going to get some girth out of it, right? Pretty subtle when it's minus 15. We saw it on the graphs, but I actually like it here. Let's try the 1. Okay, this is even more destructive. This has nice mids, not really what we're looking for here, so I'm gonna go back to this one, which I really like. So before, after. It's subtle, but it's breaking up. And I want this for this round to really break up. So nice. Now the EQ modules, I would like to just take some time to enjoy the low frequencies alone from EQ 1, 2, and 3. Let's do these first on 1. Okay, EQ1's pretty woolly on the peak mode, but the shelf is really, really unobtrusive. It just lifts the extremes. 2, notice there's no highs, no presence, just the middle one, right? And it can go up to 15, which we're gonna do. It's insane. This is one of my favorite EQs ever. I wish I had them in hardware mode. Okay, now 3. This is a little more involving, right? I would say 3, I wouldn't say it's rounded. They're very aggressive somehow, but 2 had a little bit more of, I don't know, just subtlety. So let's try a 15 versus 15 from 3 to 2. Yeah, 3 is probably a little bit more comprehensive in what it does. They both sound great. 1, just as comparison. Right? It's probably the more, I wouldn't say clinical, but it's just there. It just does everything a little bit more in a comprehensive way. The shelf is probably the subtlest of all. That makes any sense. And it's lovely that you can bring that shelf high as 250, 400, but in the 200, it's just so nice. You can still filter that. I think the high pass that we saw in the graphs was kind of playing some cleaning factor into these extreme lows, right? While these two, they just keep giving, so that's why they feel bigger. Now, if I were to do this kick, I mean, let's do a 3 and just enjoy what it does. I'm gonna go lows, then highs, and then presence. And you will be like, has this been so easy and I didn't know? Because they're so effortless, especially in EQing instruments or parts of an instrument. So hear me out, or hear it out. It's just so good. I'm gonna just scout the presence factors. How nice is that it's capable? These are 3 samples. It's not a live drummer, but on live drums, the skin on the 1.4, it just gets bam. I love that. So it's extreme. Let's try these on the 2. Instantly, you hear how high that is, right? A little bit more sandy. This is not as forgiving as the 3, but it's nice. It's much more precise, much more aggressive. Right? But the 3 was just all out. Right, insane. Now for the compressor, I just want to go straight to this. Attack 25, recovery 0.2. The threshold is close to 9. I'm compensating, maybe not even. There's a linear or bass cut. I'm doing a bass cut. I'm gonna just turn it on, hear out. This is just how, I don't know, just hear it out. How much it smacks things, right? It's so good. Now I know I'm, gaining stuff. You can always trim it down. The tails of the reverb are just, which are in the samples actually, are just picking so nicely up. This is so good. Let's do the snares. You hear how the 60 Hz is capable of giving body to the snare? This is really nice. I want to jump on, well, it's not done, but I want to jump on what the 2 can do on the presence. But I want to try the lows. What do the lows do on a snare, right? Because lows on snares are super important, but oftentimes we make them muddier than they should be. And so a lot of people try and stay off the lows, and it just gives a snare not enough balls to play with the kick. It's just the heft of the drum is all there. Even more. Plus 15, these things are not scared to go that way. This feels so natural here. I think I want to keep this one. Let me try and find a point. I liked to harass the listener with 3.5 on the snares. Let's see how, maybe the 2-3. I like to push them here, but I know the context of things. So have you heard how negative on the 2.3 just was everything we needed from the snare minus what we are going to free for other instruments? Nice, right? Now let's keep going on comp 2. And let's try and just keep the 5-1. I love this. Maybe the de-esser, maybe not. I'm just gonna go play with it. You see and hear how it sits on it and then it just releases. It's so nice. So the 25 is really musical. Maybe 3? It almost feels, and this is why I love these plugins, it almost feels processed when it's off. And it's feeling processed badly. Like, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done it. And it's like, no, this is the bypass. This is on. And it's like, oh, okay, well, on sounds as natural and effortless as it should be. All the good analog gear does it. So when plugins do it, I'm always kind of captivated by it. All right, so this is good. We are not going to touch it. And what I'm gonna do is just add effects to them because this is where I wanna go. So I imported my current template. Let's play with the effects and find something that fits. Just a little bit of air. I have this bucket brigade and it's just set. In a way, I kind of dialed the preset and loved it. Okay, so now hi-hat. I have an original hi-hat which sounds like this. And it's kind of still in context, but not that much. So what I want to do is this. I want to place the Filk comp 2 on the first module slot so that it's just working first here, and then we do maybe EQ and then preamp last. If I engage the de-esser, obviously we're gonna get a ton more gain reduction because it's highlighting the highs. Honestly, I don't need it here, although you're hearing that with 0.25 and 5 seconds, it's just in tempo on 2.1. So it sounds good, I'm gonna compensate it. Okay. Now, I honestly have no idea when I want to go, so I'm going to use the EQ just to guide me. And I think I'm going to start from the presence. I'm going to crank it up a tiny bit, 3 dBs is a lot, and then I'm going to play with the frequencies steps and just hear it out where I hit something that goes with kick and snare. This works. Now, how about taming the highs? Okay, this is also fine. Let's see where we go with the preamp, maybe number 2. This is gaining high frequencies back. I don't want that. So S1 maybe? It's giving some frequencies back in which I wouldn't want it, but to be honest, it just fits better in the image of what the kick and snares are doing. So I'm not gonna mess it up. I wanna try some effects on it. Maybe the BBD, maybe, not sure. Okay, maybe shimmering sky. See, it's contextualizing itself. My timeline, which is set kind of linearly. You can hear it, right? It's a little bit obtrusive, I would say, but not when things are playing. So, okay, it's fine. Let's keep going. What else I have here? Maybe the 7, 8, 9. Okay, well, these I'll leave here. I just want to go somewhere else. I want to find, there's an extra kit that I would love to work on just a little bit. There's 3 more kits that are playing and I don't want them to clash against these. So it could be a nice chance to just feel how they can work through FilkChannel. So here it's got that point, right? So let's try that. Now, I'm probably going to try the 1Q here, the preamp, and then the compressor. Okay, let's turn them off. maybe I'm gonna start from the EQ, but with the EQ placed in the middle. Then I'm gonna preamplify it, but with the amp before the EQ. So let's try that. This is nice. I wanna solo it now. And before? Insane sound design. I like this. I don't want to even compress it. I'm fine that way. So kicks, snares. Kind of like this. I'm saving for my own mental sanity. So now there's kit 3 and 4. Well, these are probably complementary. I don't even know if I want to use them. Okay, so here I'm gonna try the 3. And I want EQ like before, and then use the preamp before the EQ, but after I'm done with EQing, if that makes sense. This works. It's placing this kit to do something as an effect, just, not taking priority out of my other stuff, and it's nice. So now we know that the answer is bass. Now here, the bass is playing a figure that I don't like. I want to change, but I want to try and see if there's a way to just use the compressor to lose that sort of kick hit note in which it's playing. You're gonna hear it in a second. I'm gonna disable everything. Let's play the bass. Okay, so why don't we go compressor first? I'm gonna use comp 1 here. Try maybe 6 to 1. There's no release, no nothing. Maybe it works, maybe not. I'm gonna try and tame it in some frequencies. Okay, it's gaining volume, but as we notice, I'm creeping up, so that's okay. Now, okay, I like this. Let's try to do a comparison with B and use comp 2 here. Again, maybe in the 5 and kind of fast. This one allows us to tweak attack and recovery together, so. Okay, as comparison, 1 was like this. I like 1 better. Now I'm gonna try EQ3 here. Just fantastic, as expected. And maybe a little bit less 3K. Which I can't remove here. So what I'm gonna try and do is a little bit more 1K. Let's try this. Okay, I was kind of off. I felt like it could be a presence thing. It's actually better on the 0.7. So without, with, okay, now I'm gonna try and oversaturate it with maybe S2 from pre-2, which had, if you remember, a ton of presence. But I'm gonna just try and bring it up from 0 to just a tiny little bit. It's making it easier to mix. Now I don't hear the bulge part of the lows, which is a nice sub, but it's out of place. This one's cleaning itself, maybe because the saturation's just crapping out on itself. I don't know. So this is nice. What else is playing in this part? Something extra. Maybe, what's this sample for? Okay, I like this. Let's try this. Now, what would we want from something like this? Well, I think I'm gonna start with the EQ first, and then I'm gonna play with the pre and comp, but placed this way, before and after the EQ. We want some presence. Let's just try and dial in some 0.7. It's just a single note, it's not sustaining much. So I'm thinking I want to do this, invert these two, and try just and keep a 10-second, maybe slow attack, maybe medium attack. And I want a lot of sustain. So let's try this. Turn it on. You hear it? It's just, it wasn't here before. Why is this happening? Because we have a 10-second recovery, and once we push the dynamic range down and we gain up so much, we are basically altering the release or the sustain of the synth patch itself. It's almost like an ADSR change. Really nice, okay. It has to be in the background, but just do more because it's just a single note here and there. Let's try and saturate it with Sat 2. Alright, in this case I'm not gonna use this, but I wanna dial in some Crotosian. I make names of my own reverbs, but there's a reason why it's called like that. And let's try and do a rebouncer. And hear how deep we go. Now the highs that the compressor was enhancing, the high registry, has now brought even further up by this, the interaction between these delay patterns that I have. Okay. Who's next? Ooh, what can we have fun on? Maybe there's an extra bass, okay? Why did I write extra bass here? Oh, well, okay. Now we know why. Sort of a Juno sound, right? So let's do these alone, because it's a typical synth sound people dial their ears on, right? So first EQ, I think I want to go, the synths have something for this sort of ASB thing. So here you don't really feel it as crisp as before, right? It's amazing on this sort of toned down, not dull, but like vintage synthesizers. Not the ones from the 90s that will cut your head off if you just increase the highs, but the ones before those. Love this. I'm making sounds in my mouth while I hear it. It's just addictive. Okay, and here let's play with the preamps because they really feed on the sound, or vice versa. The sound really feeds into the preamp. So I want to hear what kind of vibe they have. Okay, I have a feeling that these into my black hole pedal and some timeline could be the ticket. Maybe we need some, maybe glitch. Okay, let's try with the glitch first. Okay, so until the bass entered, things were kind of fine. But now we got a little bit of a clash here. This will be probably something more surgical that you want to do. You could add an instance here. Why did things kind of clash with each other? Well, I'm kind of adding highs in both areas. So maybe the Filk channel that was on bass one could use a tiny little less, what? I don't know. Well, it would need another EQ. So let's try and fix that with, I'm just experimenting here, just pretending I have to use just this one, right? So EQ1, try and find something here in the middle where we can completely cut the mid frequencies and just let the other bass speak. Okay, this could work. What's the reasoning behind these? Well, I took EQ1 because it's the most probably open to changes, most versatile of all. And I took the mid frequencies, the white cream knob, the middle ones, and I cranked it up to plus 12. And I found a kilohertz amount that completely canceled or made it really hard to hear and feel the synth bass, the higher part, the bass extra 1. Once I found that spot in which I couldn't hear it, I just reversed the gain and I got those highs back. So I took bass out of bass extra high frequency area. Although it's a mid frequency knob, it's already kind of in the highs, right? Then I did the opposite. I could have gone through bass extra and just reduced stuff just to play negative on both of them. I just offset it here. I took the yellow knobs and dialed in something around 321 hertz, just ready there, and added some. The reason being, I want the area in which I've sacrificed stuff to be compensated with another one. So now bass and bass extra 1 have a sound that kind of fit each other, right? The two sounds fit each other. So no compression, no anything, just dialed in on top of that. As you remember, this is adding color on top, like, if you had a real hardware, you have some overtones from the EQ as well. Maybe this is also adding to the way the bass track comes a little bit forward and it's kind of easier to understand. I was, however, getting a little bit too much low junk. So what I did, because I have HP here, I took and found out that 60 hertz kind of worked, and I just filtered the lows there. And the combination of the two worked. So this is really good. Now, what if I wanted to use this as a last resort on just a mix bus? No reason for it. I'm gonna try and use it. Gonna make a mix bus for the two mix buses that I have. I know it's a sketch, I told you. And then we're gonna just use the Filk Comp 2 because, or maybe the EQs as well, because they're so good as well on basses. Let's try that. Okay, so I've gathered just enough instruments to have fun, and let's take FilkChannel, no preamp, no EQ. I'm gonna drop the compressor here, and we're just gonna try the 1 first. 2 to 1, just a little bit on the bass channel. Maybe we're gonna dial in some sidechain, I don't know. Let's hear how it sounds. Okay, it's got its sound. I compensated with the output so that we can do a little bit of its own. It doesn't sound bad on a bass, but I want to try and do more, but with the sidechain at around, whatever, maybe 100 and change. It's got tons of sound. Now here, the way I would play it on a 2 to 1, I would not go higher in ratio. I would keep it at 2 to 1, which is surprisingly low for doing what I'm gonna do, which is inject it from the dry. So just a tiny little bit to push the mix up. I had to stop just to tell you, this is already nice. So what is it, 20% before? I had to do before and after just stopping and restarting because I want you to hear the same exact transients. I know sometimes it's bothering, but sometimes I have to do it. There's situations in which I don't do it, others in which I do it. The samples that just trigger the first segment of the marker where I place it just sinks in itself better. So nice. Now, what if we were to use Comp 2? Now here, I find it hard to say I would use 0.25, but I don't know. Let's try everything. Probably 1.5, little bit of compression, and just maybe auto release. This has kind of a glossy, it's very vintage sounding and appropriate. It's got this glossy honey kind of vibe. And it's not bad, but at 1.5 for this whole thing, I probably wouldn't use it. I kind of, the Filk Comp 1, the cassette 70s kind of vibe, I like better. But let's try to go a little bit further down, maybe a 3 to 1 with kind of a faster attack. You heard it? It's got a ton of vibe, sounds good. So before and after. And this is the perfect example in which, number one, I was not expecting this. I haven't tested this. I'm improvising live. So truth be told, number one. Number two, it's the perfect example of we're sacrificing data and information and detail and stuff that, yes, I even have spent time adjusting in terms of sound design, but the vibe is so good. I want to leave it at that. Because I think in this video, I was able to convey to you the portrait of two important factors that I need to have in play each time I compose. whether it's a commission or an original score, sketches that I pitch to developers. Time is money for me, and I need to make moves that I know make sense. But I also want to be surprised because I work alone most of the time and I get feedback from the audio leads and supervisors later on. So it's sort of a ping pong with delays. There's not a lot of interplay with other musicians. It's important that the virtual instruments, the real instruments, the pedals, and the plugins, like FilkChannel, for example, kind of surprise me from time to time and give me ideas that I wasn't expecting and then carry me by hand and just help me develop stuff. I want to be able to be sort of light-minded a little bit on it. And I think FilkChannel did it because sometimes we were hearing things that helped us kind of reshape other tracks and keep going. And it's very fresh, again, and refreshing to hear the sound develop in ways that are not 100% as you were planning in your head, but are absolutely maybe even better than you were expecting, without being always correct, because correct means nothing. We have to have a footprint of sound and vibe to give people feelings, especially if it's a soundtrack that is going to support a movie, video footage, film in general, or a video game, for example. I hope this video gave you, as usual, kind of a motivation and push to try new stuff, make your music sound even better than it usually does. Thank you very much for following me. We'll see each other soon. Ciao.